Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. Can you hear me okay? That's fine. As Edwin said, it's February, the month of romance, Valentine's. And as someone I used to work with used to say, this is when young men's hearts turn to things that women have been thinking about all winter. So we thought that today we would have authors who write romantic novels. What I want to do today is to talk to Diane and Suzanne Marshall and discover why they write, what gives them the inspiration, where do they find their characters, and I hope that you'll find interest in understanding more about why writers want to write books. So, I'm going to start with Diane. I'm going in alphabetical order, all right? Alan or Marshall, is that all right?
That's fine.
That's fine.
Right. All right. So, Diane, why do you write? Why did you start writing?
I started writing mainly because I love the area that I live in.
Which is?
Yorkshire Dales,
Yes.
settled in the Yorkshire Dales. And I also was part of a large print firm and saw a lot of sagas going through the firm, and then all of a sudden they dried up, so we had no family sagas. So I decided to go home one night like an idiot and start to write, and lo and behold I found out I could write. But since then I've just carried on and on.
And how long have you been writing?
About 18 years now.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long have you been writing, Suzanne?
Since about the age of 8, in a very juvenile way, obviously, but it
That's a long time.
was something innate, you know. I've got a little page there I could quote about when the question is addressed to me. We're still talking to Diane.
No, this is a
Okay,
conversation. I'm interested that you find out from each other.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's just the reason I give for, I think, why I write. You know, I was at boarding school in the Lake District at the age of 8. I vividly remember long hikes across the fells at the weekends led by Mrs. von Schebetner, our assistant matron. She would regale us with scary German fairy tales, and we would stumble over stiles to keep up with her. We thought nothing of putting on an impromptu play the next day for the whole school, and won a drama award in Penrith for the Snow Queen. The point is, the school gave us unusual freedom of expression and encouraged creativity. My urge to write stories from an early age seemed to have stemmed from this. I've still got my first little book, I have it there somewhere, about that big, age 9, which was continued by my grandson aged 7 and granddaughter aged 8. I believe in encouraging the family. I just think that's why.
That's
a bit why I have this urge to write down stories from a very young age, but
And don't teachers make a difference? If you've got a good teacher.
If you've got a good English teacher, it makes all the difference.
Yeah,
Gives you an interest.
Yes, it does. That's encouragement.
That's encouragement,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So where do you write? Do you have a special place to write, or do you just write anywhere?
Usually I have a room downstairs that I hide away from. Don't get mixed in with the rest of the family, to be honest. It's my little space. So I hide myself away down there.
And are you the same? Are you the
well,
same?
the Mill
Suzanne?
Children, my first serious novel, we had a white Formica kitchen table, and I used to like it with nothing at all on it except my pen and my pad. It seemed to clear my mind, that. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I wrote there a lot at one time.
I keep my table clear because it has to be, because otherwise you can see this one's doing and that one's doing, and you've got to concentrate.
Yeah, yes. And you obviously started to write your genre of novels because that was what you'd been dealing with.
Yes, and because I like history.
Right.
I love history.
Right.
Because all my novels are Victorian or Edwardian.
Yes.
So I love telling the stories of the Dales and what people have forgotten about and bringing it back to life again. And the sayings of the Dales as well, because Yorkshire.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why I mainly started writing that style.
Yes.
Similarly, I had quite a few press cuttings, I think, well, not just at the moment. Most of them, I referred to the fact that I was at another boarding school, this one, Skelfield, which was an idyllic building and grounds, etc. And that stimulated my story, or as a venue to begin it.
And where was Skelfield? Where?
It's near Ripon. I think it's another name now, Queen Margaret's or whatever.
Oh, yes.
But it's
Yes.
it was a magical building, and we had this very, pardon me, I knew I'd get a try for it, a very boring geography teacher, and I never listened to much such history as well. But one day on a wet afternoon, she started talking about the mill children and what a terrible life they had, and it just stuck in my mind. And on a day when there wasn't much going on, I started 3 foolscap pages of a story about the mill children. And then years later, it came out. So you could say it stemmed from that boarding school, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's things like that gives you ideas, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
they're always in the back of your head.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Yes. So were your characters based on real people, or were they really from your imagination?
I think they were imagination, probably with a bit of input from my own personality. I don't know.
Yes.
Bit of perhaps what
Yes.
what I hoped I could achieve. I'm trying to think about no, it was imagination. I have to say at that stage. The second book is more based on historical fact and
Yes.
actual people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what about your characters, Diane? Are they?
My characters are totally fictitious, but a lot of the background characters are historical,
Right.
and the history about the towns and the country is historical as well.
Yes.
So I do a lot of research.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
but the main character is completely fictitious, and the family is completely fictitious. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So you're writing about the Yorkshire Dales. Yes. So and you say some of it's historic. So are you spending time up there doing your research, or is it all online, or?
No, I travel around the Dales quite a bit, picking up pieces of information and talking to people. And I'm very lucky I had a family who knew the history of especially Dentdale and Cowgill and Swaledale and such like. So I can still remember bases that my grandma and granddad and my mum and dad told me. So
Yes.
and our family's very close, so we all say, oh yes, can you remember this and can you remember that?
Yes.
So yeah, I just put all the bits together.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think research can become addictive.
Yeah.
As you say, I got very interested, in, particularly with the mill children, and looking back into lots of different books on the subject.
Yeah.
And it all forms in your mind after a while. And then
Yeah.
you can write more convincingly, can't you, when you've done
Yeah,
that?
you can. I've
Yeah.
just mentioned mill children actually on our trip over, because we came over blubber houses, and there used to be a woolen mill there that was worked by orphans basically, and they're all buried there.
Are they?
Yeah,
Fascinating.
it is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, Richard Osler came into that book. He was an actual character in Bradford. There's a statue to him this day, isn't there, with the young children,
Yeah.
do what he did to change the
Change
laws
the
in the
conditions,
factories, to shorten the hours, the terrible hours that they worked, you know. So a lot of it was based around that as well, which sounds rather dull, but you can build quite a good story around all that poverty and unhappiness, and then
Yes.
transforming their situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can, and it was horrendous for children, and they went to work so young, didn't they? They were at work so young, and were expected to work such long hours.
Exactly.
Yes.
Appalling.
Yes.
Yeah. You look at your own grandchildren and think,
I
how
know.
could you put them through that? Oh,
And could they do it?
yes, quite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not if they didn't have a computer in front of them now.
No, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yeah. So So I'm interested in the sort of writing romance.
Mm-hmm.
What, I mean, if you write different books, how do you decide upon your romantic line within your book?
That's a good question. The heroine always have to have somebody that's interested in her.
Yes.
And she usually has two people interested in her in my books. Either a nice gentleman or a bad gentleman. And it just depends who wins. And everybody likes a bad man, really.
A bit of character.
A bit of character.
A bit of character.
So it just depends how it plays out, to be honest.
Yes.
But
And have you decided that at the beginning?
yes, I always have a beginning, a middle and an end.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes.
Sometimes I go off track a little bit.
Yes, so the characters don't write themselves, as some people say they do. You actually have decided on the whole format of the book when you start.
Yes, although I do go off track quite a bit. If I think, oh, that's a good story, we'll carry on with that one.
Yes.
We'll put that in. That gives it a bit more interest.
Mm.
Because I'm always aware that a book must not sag in the middle. It's got to have a good meaty middle, else people lose interest.
That's right.
Mm.
Yes, you have to have conflict, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
It mustn't be foreseen too much.
No,
you know.
no, and it mustn't be so easy that you think, oh, that character's going to do this. You know it is. Oh, sorry. Yes, yes. Yeah.
You're speaking to
One another.
on the right, whereas we're on the left.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
That's true. That's true.
So, I mean, you can manage twice as loud.
Yeah.
All the microphones, I don't know they're recording.
Yes, are they?
They're recording, but they're not for amplifying.
Right.
Yeah. We'll direct our remarks at you then a bit more.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes, so Suzanne, do you do the same thing? Have you planned out your book from start to finish?
No, I haven't at all. No, I let the characters lead a bit, which you wouldn't think would succeed, would you? But the first book, much to my surprise, did succeed. On Amazon of all things, you know, but the world is your oyster and the world decides whether it wants to read it or not, doesn't it? But I would say with the first book, I believed in romance a bit more. Probably I was younger, you know, and with the second book, I think you would say, Ray, it's more of an adult book and less romantic really, which perhaps men prefer, do they? I don't know. A bit more reality. So you do change a bit, I find, don't you? I like to think there's romance in the second book,
Yes.
but it is
yes.
there, but not to the extent of the first one,
Yes.
which I really felt the emotion in that, you know. But,
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So when you're writing, then are you consciously writing for men or for women? When you write,
not consciously for
No.
either, just to please myself, really,
Yes.
at the time. Yeah.
And you, Diane?
I started originally for women to make it a harder woman's book, because they're quite graphic, are some of my books. And then I found out that men were reading them as well as women. So I write for both now.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel you have to change the language if you're writing for men rather than for women?
Just a little. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, publishing's going through a funny phase, so you've got to be very careful what you write. But at the very beginning, I was asked to write quite gritty sex scenes and crime scenes.
Yes.
But over the years, it seemed to needed to be dulled down a little. So
Right.
yeah,
That's interesting that it should actually be damped down when you might feel that things are more graphic. Seem to have more graphic television programs. We seem to have certainly more on social media and through the media that's graphic. And so I find that interesting that you've been asked to sort of tone it down.
I think you imagine more when you're reading than actually seeing on the screen, and
Yes.
that's the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm
Yes.
just writing a book at the moment, and I've been told, please don't put a rape scene in
Right.
or child abuse, because it's not interested at the moment.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. No, I see what you mean. I dare say you do have to watch what you say more these days. I'm just writing what comes to mind, but it occasionally occurs to me with all that you see on television about
know.
wokeism and this, you know, that you need to reread it and make sure that you haven't made comments that perhaps wouldn't go down too well, you know.
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
just got to be careful.
Yes.
And,
Yes. Yes.
although the editor, I mean, the Jeremy Clarkson incident is you know, your editor should
Yes.
say
Yes.
this
it
is
should
not
definitely-
on.
That's right. Yes, they should. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be picked up before it gets
Yes,
anywhere near to the
exactly.
public,
Yeah.
shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it should. Yes. Yes. And do you feel that you're moving your writing into a modern age? At lunchtime, I was just listening on the radio to them talking about trans prisoners, in fact, and which sort of prisons they should be in. Do you feel that you have to move your writing into a modern age to include different views on racism or trans or the LGBTQ?
I don't, because I'm usually write historical,
Right.
Victorian, and
Yes.
I have brought a trans person into the book once, and there was an uproar.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
So I steer clear now,
Yes.
completely clear.
Yes.
And it doesn't fit with that period anyway, because
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
so
really. No.
I do steer clear.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know about you.
No, I'm totally stuck within the Victorian era, actually. And I find even my
Same with me.
conversation is Victorian. And I couldn't revert to modern writing if I tried now. You know, I feel that's my genre, you know, sort of. And I'm fascinated by the 1800s and all that happened in that. And I try and devolve stories that wrap around either suffragettes or something that's going on at that.
It was an
beginning of the
amazing
suffrage.
time, wasn't it? It was
Sorry?
an absolutely
Very,
amazing
everything
time.
was-
Everything was going, yeah.
Going ahead. Yeah, no, I find it fascinating. But no, that's probably why I will find it more difficult, because I'm not a modern writer and I'm not picking up on what's going on in the world at the moment, really. I'd rather not know.
No, I'm finding it hard at the moment because I'm writing a Second World War novel,
Yeah,
and it's completely out of character for me. And I'm struggling, I'll be honest,
yeah, yeah,
because I've always stuck to the Victorian Edwardian period.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And
Yeah,
it-
different problems to describe, different things to have to describe. Yes.
And with the Second World War, I was never taught it at school because it had just happened. It was modern history.
Yes. Yes, it
So-
wasn't history,
No,
so it
it
was
wasn't
not,
history at the time.
No, it is now, but it wasn't then,
No,
was it? No.
no. That shows my age.
Dear. Yes. So what about you? You've written your book. It's all there. You've got all the words down, and you think, right, what do I do with it now? How do I get my book cover, and how do I get it published? What did you have to do that?
With the Mill Children, I originally went to York Publishing Services, and they presented the book. At a later date, my son said, why don't I put it on Kindle for you? I don't know whether I can quickly show you. Have I time for this or not?
Yeah, do.
I think this is what made the big difference. We all look like gargoyles on this, but I got a big spread like that in the Yorkshire Post,
Right.
purely because their books were suddenly on Kindle when Kindle was. I caught the crest of a wave with that. Really.
Yes. Yes.
And I think I emailed a little bit there. Then last April, her son made it available on Kindle, since when it's gone from selling an average of one online copy a day to 1,535 for a whole October. In less than 9 months, she has sold more than 4,000 digital copies, propelling her to number 3 on Amazon's historical romance list. Well, I was just incredibly lucky that that book hit the crest of the wave with Kindle. But, I mean, they are worldwide, Kindle and Amazon, aren't
Oh,
they?
yes,
That's
they
the
are.
advantage,
Yes.
you know.
Well, I have to say, except New Zealand, apparently.
Oh, yes, maybe I never did have one in New Zealand, but I was absolutely
Yes.
staggered. And it was all because my son suggested at that
Yes.
point putting it on Kindle and Amazon. So I'm afraid I've every admiration for people who get accepted by publishers, because I know just how hard it must be. But there are arguments for going self-published, aren't there?
Yes,
Really, you know,
yes.
because you decide how long it runs for. It's not remaindered or anything like that.
That's
you
right.
know.
Yes.
But in some odd way, I don't feel completely validated because I haven't been with a publisher. A chap called David Headley, who you may know of, who is in contact with the Romantic Novel Association, once contacted me from London and said he liked the Mill Children. But he came back and said, you must write more than one. You've got to write 2 or a series, which is my only ambition. I'm knocking on now. I think I shan't be doing too many more real books, but I'm trying to complete the 3rd in the series. And when I've done that, I might go back to him and say, what do you think of the 3? But that apart, I'm perfectly happy with Amazon and Kindle, which tick over. But I have to say that one, the second one, hasn't been nearly as successful because I haven't bothered to promote it much, or else it's not as good a book, who knows, you know.
I think the marketing is a big thing, and that was the next thing I was going to say was, what about your marketing? How do you tell people what you've done, and how do you get it out there?
Yeah.
Clearly, when you've got a newspaper spread,
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
Yeah, if you can manage that.
If you
it's
can
the
manage that,
answer.
that's great. Yes.
Yeah.
But marketing's not easy, and it's time consuming.
True. No,
And I'm just the opposite, I'm afraid, because I've got an agent and I've got a publisher. In fact, 2 publishers, because I write under Gracie Hart and Diane Allen. And I don't know if it's easier or harder, to be honest.
no, I admire you for being accepted. It's not easy.
I'd love to be able to sit down and, you know, I have many of conversation with my editor and say, I have to explain Yorkshire words quite a lot. We have many an argument to do, me and my editors. But yes, I have an agent. She tries to find me the best publisher for my books. I'm with Pan Macmillan and Simon & Schuster at the moment. And I'm contracted to 3 books with Simon & Schuster and contracted with 3 books for Pan Macmillan. And I'm given a timeline, I'm given a page length, and as I said before, I have to be careful with some of the characters, not to get carried away with them. And I send it to an editor once it's written. I have to write 100,000 words a book, at least 100,000 words a book. And then it goes to the editor, and the editor says, oh no, take this bit out and that bit out. So you are lucky, you really are lucky.
I was lucky. I know, just the once.
And then I go to a copy editor, and the copy editor checks the times and the dates and that I've got it right, and I have many an argument with those as well. And then I get proofread, and when I get to the proofread stages, I'm putting the flags out because I know I've won. And then it comes published. That's this, in large print, audio, and paperback. So yeah, I have a completely different life.
Yes, yes, you do, don't you?
Yeah.
And how long does it take then, with all the various stages? How long does it take you to write the book?
Well, with the
publish point?
Gracie Hart, it's been a bit hard because Simon & Schuster wanted 3 books in 12 months.
Ooh.
So nobody saw me last year. I just went to ground. With Pan Macmillan, I write a book a year, and I'm quite happy with that.
Yes.
Gives me time, a bit of time, because you do need a life as well.
You do.
But last year it was just terrible because as I say, I do a lot of research, so I look into each character and where they are and what was going on in that period. And I also, Gracie Hart's set in Leeds, so I have to go to Leeds to
Yes.
check what goes
Yeah.
on and what was there and who was there and what was happening there at that period. So Gracie takes a lot more writing, but a lot more under pressure. And Diane is the Dales books that I really love. So my heart goes into the Diane Allen books. Not that it doesn't with Gracie, but it was a bit rushed, was those.
You weren't writing the two together then?
Yeah.
You were, really?
Yes.
So you were writing one under Diane and
Yeah, I finish one and then I start another. I never
Yes.
write two at the same,
same
time,
time.
because the characters get intermingled.
Yes. Yes.
And the language is a bit different in Gracie Hart because it's not as broad Yorkshire. So yeah, I've got to put my head right for that.
Yes. Yes. And that must have been really hard.
It was. The 3 books last year was quite
Yes.
something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Yeah. But a lot of midnight oil burnt, wasn't there, Ronnie?
Yeah.
No, I can see why you succeed, because you are very professional, which I'm not. I just do what I feel like doing and hope I get away with it. But like many of the
Well, you
romantic novel associations, they are very professional, most of them, aren't they, with publishers, etc.
Well, you
I
are
suppose
as
I'm
well.
just an example that you can get away with it if you're lucky. You know.
You don't produce a book. You just don't produce a book without
No.
being professional.
Well,
it's hard
exactly.
work.
Yes, I suppose so.
It
It
is.
is, yes. I don't.
It is.
I mean, I did do the hard work myself. I mean, that wasn't ideal. Some people would say that ought to have had a proper publisher's cover, but those are my grandchildren dressed up in the attic of the theatre in York. They have an upstairs
Yes,
gallery where you
yes.
can go. We had a lovely
Yes.
time poking around, and all we came out with though was that. But it worked, and then that was off the internet.
Yes.
And it was
That's lovely because it's personal
it's
to you.
personal,
It
but
is.
whether or not it's professional.
I put my
Sure.
grandchildren's names as the characters in books occasionally because
Yes.
I think it's nice for them to look back after my day. They
Yeah.
can say, "Oh,
Yes.
Nana
Yes.
put
Yeah.
our name in." Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. But I think the cover, the Mill Children the Mill Children cover, is very authentic looking.
Do you?
Because yes,
Very good.
yes. So I think that works.
And I looked straight away at it this
Yes,
morning.
yes.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
feel it perhaps looks a little amateurish, but I don't care because it's my grandchildren, and I've got a third grandson who used to say, "Aren't I nice enough?" You know? I better write an extra row. But
Yes. Yes, yes. So you've got a third book on the go.
Yes, researching it like mad, but I think I'm burying myself in research, and I'm 80 this year, and I'm finding it harder to retain the information. I mean, I'm ploughing on with it. Aren't I, Robert? but he writes far more prolifically than I do. But I feel I can't write on until I've got all the facts in my head. So
Yes.
I'm delaying really, but I just have an ambition to finish 3.
Yes.
And then I feel I've done. The other thing we've done is we do poetry. I don't really want to bring that up
Yes, yes,
separately,
do.
but that
Yeah,
is something we've done. We go to the poetry group. And
Yes.
we came up with that cover, didn't we, Bob, from the garden? And it's just half Robert's and half mine.
Lovely.
When I first started with the poetry group, I was rhyming everything. And you quickly learn that people who've been to Cambridge and Oxford and things think that's very naive, apparently. So you start doing prose as well. And it's debatable, isn't it? Some people really don't like poetry that's prose. But I think it's more to do with rhythm. As long as there's rhythm there, I
Yes.
think it works.
Yeah.
And I've got more use now to doing prose poetry. And it records your life up to a point. It'd be of more interest for the family, perhaps, in years to come. But it doesn't sell, does it, poetry, really?
No,
Yeah.
no, tell me about it. No, I'm a poet, and it is more difficult to sell poetry books, definitely it is. But you're right about rhyming or rhythm and musicality. It needs to have a musicality,
Yes,
not
yeah.
necessarily just a rhyme at the end of every other line,
No,
doesn't it?
no.
So it's. But again, poetry is very different. Everybody writes very differently.
They do, don't they?
And
Yes.
equally lovely poetry,
Yes.
but sometimes people are very terse,
Yes,
with very
yes,
few
true.
words, and other times
Yes, that's
it's more
right.
Wordsworthian.
Yeah,
Really?
very true.
Yeah.
I mean, I put in a little introduction to this that I think it's very good for people. It doesn't matter whether it's as good or bad. If you write your thoughts down,
Yes.
look at, you know, people who've just lost somebody. There's a chap we knew who used to say the worst part is drawing the curtains back in the morning.
Yes.
And I said, well, just write down what your thoughts are, you know.
Yes.
I think it's very good for you personally.
Yes.
I think writing is good in any form like that because
Yeah.
a lot of you goes into your book.
Yes.
My agent often says, did that really happen to you? Because it sounds as if it did.
Yes.
So I think a lot
Yes.
of what you've gone through goes into your books,
I
Yes.
think you're right.
as well as poetry.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yes, I think you're right, and I think it may be something that's happened to you, or it may be something that's happened to somebody close to you
Yeah.
that you've got a strong feeling about that you can put into the books. So, did you design your covers, Diane, or were they designed for you?
No, they designed for me, but I have a say in the cover.
Yes.
You know, they always send me a picture of the girl that's going to be on the front cover, and I'll say yay or nay to it. And then the backdrop, they try and fit in for that era.
Yes.
So yes, no,
Yes.
yeah. A lot of authors don't have a say in the cover, but I fortunately do.
Yes. Yes, having listened to authors over the years, and I've listened to quite a few who've come to give talks, it's amazing how different agents or different publishers behave about the control that the author has, either over the book or the cover or the font or all that sort of thing, which you think would be very straightforward, but it isn't always, is it?
No, it isn't. I mean, I used to work in large print, and a cover, we used to try and get the original covers for large print, but a cover like this one would cost a large print firm something like £2,000 just for the cover rights alone. So we used to have to, you know, large print have only got small print runs, so we used to just have to find second-hand covers
Yes.
and get them there as near as we possibly could, just to save money, otherwise large print would not be published. So that was a different aspect.
Yes,
I
it
know.
is,
I know that
yes.
side of it. So I've, you know,
Yes.
I can be aware that the publisher has to be careful with the amount of money that they spend on covers. But at the same time, you want it to sell.
Well, you do, don't you? And covers do sell, don't
Covers
they?
do sell.
They do sell.
They do sell.
There's no doubt that when you go into a
Yeah.
library or a bookshop and you pick it up, if the front cover doesn't appeal to you,
You don't
you
look
don't
at
look
it.
any further, do you?
No. No, it is. Don't judge a book by its cover, really.
Well, it is really. Yes, it is. But you do. Yes. Yes, you do.
You would say that about that book, Ray, wouldn't you? He feels it's a better book than the first one, but he thinks the cover
Doesn't suit the
is
book.
wrong and the title. And who knows, he could be right, you know, because it's not doing very well.
No.
I haven't pushed it very much, but
Oh, titles are a nightmare, though. Do you?
I probably are. I mean, I hope that might reflect on Brideshead Revisited, to give you a bit of a feeling from that era, but it probably doesn't tell you enough. It's about the charge of the Light Brigade, believe it or not, that. You know, the little lad in it goes off and joins all the young lads going. So it's a much more masculine book, that one.
Yes.
I don't know. Might think about it, changing it. We'll have to come up with some ideas for me, Ray.
Might I just say that the book on poetry, right, we try to get an emphasis on sort of jocularity, because what we couldn't get was large print. And inside the shed, there is a handwritten title, and it's called Stumble Inn. Now the Stumble Inn is a little place in Poppington, and that's exactly what it is. It's called Stumble Inn. Well, it could be called Stumble Out, but that's what's on the book. And it took some effort to try and get it in there.
Yeah.
But we managed it, but it didn't show. So, you've got to make in your face.
Yes.
It was a light-hearted book, really. We didn't want to take it too seriously,
No.
did we? But
And the title means a lot. I mean, I wrote one called A Mother's Sins, and that was my favourite book because it was about the building of the Ribblhead Viaduct. But a lot of people didn't like it because they didn't like to think that the mother was committing a sin. So they didn't pick it up because mothers are supposed to be all pure, aren't they? And my mother wasn't. She was anything but. But, I should have renamed it a different name.
Yes.
So yeah, a lot of goes by their titles.
So is your marketing done for you, Diane, or do you have to do a lot yourself?
Half and half, yeah.
Right.
I have to do quite a bit of marketing, and they do, and my publisher do a lot of marketing. I always have to pass my title through the publishers. At the moment, they've got a thing about Dales, so everything is called Dales. This one's a child of the Dales. It's the next one out in summer is called a Dales Yorkshire Farmer. So at the moment, we're going through a Dales phase.
Yes.
Now, next year, it might be something completely different.
Yes. 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 And so do they put events on to market your books, or is it just through social media? Or
It's through social media, and I also go for book signings, library visits, WI.
yes.
At the moment, I'm hopefully, I'm in contention for a Romantic Novelist Award, so there's quite a bit of publicity about at the moment.
Yes.
So that's great. The more publicity you can get, the better, really. Gets your name out there.
Yes. 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 I mean, it's quite difficult to get your name out to different places,
Yeah.
isn't it? Through different
Yeah.
ways. Yes. Yes. I mean, and online is quite good, but it's still a limited group that you get
Exactly.
it out to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
did you think that book signings were too local? I did a lot with the Mill Children. I did it in Edinburgh, in London on one occasion. I
Oh,
just
gosh.
went mad on
Well done.
asking and being given permission and thinking, but in fact, you only see about half a dozen people come in, and odd ones might buy a book. So you wonder how much good
Exactly.
it does to you. You're
Yeah.
better off with newspaper articles if you can
Yeah.
get them, really,
Yes.
aren't you? But,
Yeah, I once went down the east side of the country. Oh, it took me about 2 weeks to go down the east side of the country. They organised it, and I was so disappointed because you often got one person, two
yeah,
people,
that's right.
Yes.
and you think, what am I sitting here for? I'm wasting all my days. It just depends.
No. If you can get the local newspaper to come in and photograph you being
That's a lot
book
better.
signing, the ones we did like that,
Yeah.
perhaps gave you a bit more. But at the back of my mind, I'm thinking it's either a good book or it isn't. People will either buy it, but you still have to publicise it, I suppose, don't you? Really?
And people are a bit iffy about sagas and romance. They always think it's not highbrow enough,
Yeah,
which
there's a
sounds
danger
really
of that.
snobby, but
Yeah.
you know,
no, yes.
they are. They
Yes.
do think that romance and sagas are a bit beneath some people.
Yes, and yet the history, the research, and all the work that's
yeah.
gone into it, possibly more than many other
Yeah.
novels. Yes.
And then
Yes,
different
it's true.
genres become popular, don't they? I was talking to the
Yes.
librarian in Scarborough last week, and she said science fiction, not science fiction, crime. Crime is the big thing, isn't it, at the
Yes.
moment?
I'd love to write a crime book. You don't know
Yes.
enough about it.
No. No, you need a friendly policeman, don't you? Yeah. Yes. So, when you sit down to start to write, what's the most difficult thing?
continuing the story, I think. I'm all right at the beginning, I go for it and think, when I got to 20,000 words, I think I've got a book. I always count myself when I've got to the 20,000 words, I've got a book. And then I get days where I think, oh no, the sun's shining, I want to go out. Or my friends come round and I want to go out with them. And then I have to sit down and talk hard to myself. And really concentrate on the characters.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder if I could just mention, I noticed Writers' News came yesterday afternoon. Sorry, let me just get it out. There was an article about how to write a dual narrative. And I think that's why the Mill Children was successful, because if you can have two characters going different ways and coming together, you don't get bored. You're writing about one. I had my mill child at one point in a workhouse or things like that. Her cousin, who she escaped from a mill with, in the meantime had gone on a whaler from Scarborough up to the whaling areas of the Arctic, you know. Yeah. And I found it sort of stimulated me to keep changing from what the other one was doing while this one was doing that. And so I agree with this article about creating dual narratives, if you can, with two different characters coming and going and intertwining at times and coming together at the end or whatever. I think that's why the Mill Children was successful, really, because it wasn't boring. People said it was a page turner, and that was why, I think. So I just wanted to point out that article.
Oh, that's quite right. At the moment I've got Archie, who comes from a really bad area of Toxteth in Liverpool, and I've got Maggie. They're both evacuees coming to the Dales. And I've got Maggie, who comes from a bit better class. And, you know, you've got to bounce them off one another. So, yes, you're quite right there.
You see, so it doesn't bore the reader quite so much, does it? As if you're following one character the whole way through, you know. So I'm trying to create that in my third book, but it's not easy to work out how to do it, is it, really?
No.
It's that trying to keep the interest, as you say, between having enough characters doing different things and yet not confusing the reader, which you can do when there are too many characters in a book, that you go, who are they? Whose cousin's that? So that you can't follow the story. You should go back and look at, oh yes, that's who they are. So it's working that out, isn't it?
Yeah, you're supposed to have 4 main characters.
Yes.
Yeah, no more, otherwise you confuse the reader.
Yes.
That's where I went with it wrong, because I did submit a manuscript, but it got turned down when the first one, because I had too many characters. Far too many characters now, I know, but you learn as you go along.
Yes. Yeah, and also naming your characters so they're not too similar that you confuse them.
I've often had 2 Toms in a book, or 2 Teds, and then, you know, it's been picked up at the editors. So, you have to be careful.
So you're going through a baby book trying to find a name.
Yes, I could do that.
Imagine what you have in your research pile.
I wonder whether the audience has got any questions for you. Does anybody like to ask either of our authors a question?
About names. I look at the popular names for the year. But if it's somebody in their 20s, I have to go back 20 years to 1850, and then it gives all the popular names. They're usually based on the king and queen and the princes and princesses. But I try to keep the names simple.
Yes.
Keep to the standard names. Because otherwise, I'm reading a book at the moment, it's very nice, but there's 2 characters, and both their names begin with S-Y. It's a fantasy one, I think. I keep getting mixed up with who's what. And another book I read, every other character was William or Billy or Will, and the author's now dead. But when I read the reviews afterwards, I was surprised that everybody said it. There's too many Williams. We didn't know which one was what.
Yes. I think that's right. And of course, I mean, there was a time when everybody was named after their father, so you did get lots of names the same, didn't you? But it is confusing.
And names change as well, so you've got to keep it for that period, you know. And it depends which class you're born in as well.
Yes. Sue?
And Sue's a very 1950s name because every other girl, I'm a very 1950s.
So's Diane.
Right, yeah, absolutely. We were all called Susan, weren't we? My question was, I enjoy a good saga. You get swept along with the story. And normally there's a nice, chunky, happy ending. Do you ever get tempted to sort of think, well, what happened next? Or is it when you come to an end of a book with your characters, that really is the end of the story?
No, I have written trilogies before today.
Oh gosh, that's brave.
The Windfell trilogy. The Windfell trilogy followed a family from mid-Victorian times to the break of the First World War. It was, let me have a look, because I forget, because I'm terrible at forgetting things. It was the Mistress of Windfell Manor, which started with the young girl coming from nothing and marrying a mill owner that was a really horrible sod, to put it politely. And then the Windfell family secrets, because they did have a big secret. And then it finished with Daughter of the Dales, because the granddaughter went back to being farming stuff. So yes, it was a trilogy. And I must admit, I don't like trilogies. I don't like writing them because you've not got to forget any of the characters, you know, what they do, what they get up to, and exactly what the character is. And it's just hard. And also, I know libraries aren't keen of trilogies because one person will get copy 3 when they should have had copy 1. And, you know, it just doesn't work. But you also have to make them stand on their own as well. So they're individual stories in case that does happen. So, yeah, you've got your mind on a lot of things when you do a trilogy.
Yes.
Both of you authors, what makes the era that you're writing so comfortable to you to write? Is it research? Is it just past knowledge, passed down knowledge? How do you come to that era?
You like to answer first?
I don't know. I probably am just an old-fashioned person. I don't know, that era appeals to me, you know. The romance of it, I can't put my finger on why, really. I'm stuck in it there, won't I?
I mean, we only remember through the written word past periods. Now, you're writing a book about the First World, Second World War.
I am, yeah. But
How did you come to that?
because basically my publisher said, I think it's time for a change to go out of the Victorian period because the war's selling well at the moment.
Yeah.
So they asked me to write about the war. Now, fortunately, I had a brother and a sister, and my sister was 20 years older than me. So he grew up in the war years, and a lot was passed down. And my father was a lot older than most general fathers were. So a lot I can remember from my father and my brother, what they've told me. And I also do a lot of research. And when I did start writing sagas for the Victorian period, it was because I grew up in a family where everybody knew everybody, and my great uncle used to come and stop with my mum and my auntie, and he used to be sort of an alderman of the Dale, and he used to know everything about everybody, and he could go back in history for years and years back. I mean, I came with Pam today, and she thinks I'm absolutely crackers because I can mention things that went on 200 years ago because I've looked into it and I know about it. It's just me. I just like delving in history, and I change with whatever I'm writing.
So you've got to move on from the Second World War
Probably, yeah.
to the present day,
I don't know if I want to write about present day. No.
No, I don't think so. I might just mention that if I have time. I typed that out and published it for my father. It's called Diary of a Night Fighter Pilot, and it's absolutely first class, isn't it, Bob? It's written absolutely simply, without emotion, as it happened day by day in the war. right through his career from Leeds through to Africa.
lovely.
And that sells 16 on Kindle every month still. You know, I
That's
keep
good.
thinking,
That's very
Dad,
good.
give me a break. Can't I? But
Lovely.
it is popular, there's no question about
Yes.
it. People
Yes.
recognise the value of
Yes.
somebody's first-hand account,
Yes.
don't they?
Yes.
You know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Edwin.
You had a related question to the last one, because both of you mentioned you were writing in the Victoria era, which was obviously a time of great social, technological, and geopolitical change, much like now. And yet your reaction to writing now was kind of a little bit horror-filled almost. So what is it you think? It seems it's easier for us to romanticize the past, despite all the changes that were going on then and now. What do you think might be responsible for that? And well, first of all, is it true? Do you think it's true? And then, if so, what's responsible for that?
I think television and films have a lot to play in it. We all like a romantic. I mean, I love the Brontes. I live to read the Brontes, to be honest, and I hope to think some of my books are based on based around the Brontes, should I say. But yeah, I think television and film have a lot to do with the romanticising of past history. In my books, there is quite gritty times, so I don't romanticise too much about it.
I think that era just was more romantic, you know. I feel romance is dead a bit these days. I may be totally wrong.
Sorry, do you think that would be because we only perhaps view part of society? I mean, I'm sure
Yes.
the Victorian era wasn't very romantic for 80% of the population.
Yes.
I think it was very. Let me think for the word. I think a lot of it was. It didn't come to light. There was a lot of underground grittiness going on, as well as romance. A lot of it was a whitewash, to be honest.
Yeah, well, yes. Agree.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
How long did it take to research into a book before you wrote it?
Myself, I can be researching as well as writing, so I'd say, yeah, not writing that book, but I'm always one jump ahead, if you know what I mean. I'm always researching. At the moment, I've got books that's related to the next thing that I'm going to do, which is only just ticking away in my head, but at the same time I'm reading about it. So it can take 6 months to a year to research. I've always got a pad down by the side of my computer, putting notes down all the time, and especially next to my bed as well. That's when the ideas come, just before I'm going to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when the right word appears.
Yeah, exactly.
Just as you're about to go to sleep.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the character. You think,
Yes.
yes, I can do that with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I never sleep.
Yeah, I suppose you can get lost in research, can't you?
You can.
I mean, when we were in York, I used to go into the library, and there's an area when you can look back over old newspapers. Are they called filches or something? Do you know what they're called?
Yes.
And I got absolutely lost in that. You know,
Yes.
Lady so-and-so had lost a wheel on her wagon going through York, and a prisoner had run round the walls. And it was what was happening at that time in the newspapers or reports.
Yes.
And it's
I
such
could have been there all
trivial
day.
things, isn't it, that they sometimes report, but it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I suppose it surfaces somewhere in your book when you come to write
Yes.
it, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes, it's there.
Yeah, you suddenly think, oh yes, that I can remember reading about that, we'll put that in.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, both of you. It has been fascinating
Thank
to
you.
hear about your
enjoyed it very
writing.
much.
It really has.
Yeah,
And
thank
certainly whetted my appetite to have a look at your books. So thank you very much indeed. And I hope everybody here has enjoyed it just as much and feels intrigued. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
No, no.